here participating via Zoom. We're happy to take their questions as well. And they know how to do it on Zoom, and we will see this. And we can questions, that's no problem. Mr. Saakashvili, on Saturday in 1 week, you have elections in Georgia, highly disputed, highly discussed. As a German, you know, you go on the Sunday, you go to your voting booth, you put your vote there. I myself, I'm in charge of a small voters office with a number of citizens who stay there, and we are counting the votes in the evening. And then we say, yeah, everything is okay, and in the end, we accept the result. In Georgia, there is a big discussion about the elections. There have been elections. Now there has been this procedure with Charles Michel, the president of the European Council, who traveled a couple of times to Georgia to negotiate. So what is the situation in Georgia with the elections? We can put it on here, or you can, yeah?
First of all, I would like to greet, of course, Mikheil Gahler and all the other participants. I know that many of you have traveled from a long way. I've traveled from a long way. I'm coming from Washington, where I had a meeting at the US Congress with senators, with diplomats, with experts. It was a very snap-like visit, like for one and a half day, actually. I'll speak in both languages, English and Georgian, because of course there's a Georgian audience, and there's a Georgian feedback also from Zoom from Georgia, and I'll try to move from one language to another. Washington-დან სადაც ქონდა შეხვედრები ამერიკის კონგრესში და სხვათა შორის გაიხსენა სენატორმა რიჩმა, რომელიც იყო მაშინ საგარეო კომიტეტის თავმჯდომარე ამერიკის სენატის და ეხლა არის ერთ-ერთი ხელმძღვანელი საგარეო კომიტეტის და ალბათ ყველაზე ავტორიტეტული ექსპერტი ჩვენ რეგიონზე, რომ როდესაც 2012 წელს მე გამოვაცხადე არჩევნების შედეგები, მეორე დღეს ისინი მოვიდნენ ჩემთან, დელეგაცია ამერიკელი სენატორების და შენ თუ გახსოვს, მე რა გითხარიო და მართლა გითხარ, ბოლომდე არ მახსოვდა. მე გითხარიო, რომ შენ ხარ აღმოსავლეთ ევროპის ჯორჯ ვაშინგტონიო და ესე იგი 200 წლის შემდეგაც შვილთა შვილები იამაყებენ, რომ ჩვენმა წინაპარმა ასეთი რამე ქნაო. ზუსტად იგივე მითხრა ჯო ბაიდენმა იმ პერიოდიდან სახლობ 2-3 თვეში, მაშინ ვიცე-პრეზიდენტმა, მაგრამ მინდა გითხრათ, რომ მე ამას საერთოდ არ ვეთანხმები. მე იმაჩნია, თუ ჩვენ ახლა არ გავანძლიათ ხელი, ჯერჯერობით არც არავინ არ დარჩება, ვინც უნდა იამაყოს და მე და საამაყოც არც არაფერი არ იქნება. იმიტომ რომ ჩვენ ვიქნებით ის თაობა, რომელმაც შექმნა საკუთარი ხელით ქართული სახელმწიფოებრიობა და რომლის დროსაც განადგურდა და მოისპო ქართული სახელმწიფო და საქართველო აღიკავა მსოფლიო რუკიდან. რონალდ რეიგანი ამბობდა, რომ თავისუფლება ყოველთვის არის ერთი თაობის მანძილზე ხელის გაწვენაზე განადგურებისგან, საქართველოში თავისუფლების განადგურება ხდება ჩვენ თვალწინ დღეს, გუშინ, ერთი წლის წინ, 3 წლის წინ. ჩვენთვის ამოცანა არის ის, რომ ეს პროცესი დაუყოვნებლივ შევაჩეროთ. საბოლოო ჯამში არავის რეცეპტი არ აქვს, თუ არა ჩვენ. პარტივია რას ვახცევთ ჩვენ. მივდივართ ჩვენ რაღაც ადგილობრივ არჩევნებზე უბრალოდ, რომელიც ციფრები წინასწარ დაწერილია, რომელიც უკვე მათ მომზადებული აქვს მთელი ინფრასტრუქტურა. ძალიან ბევრი კომისიის თავმჯდომარე ქართული ოცნების აპირებს, რომ თავი მოიავანტყოფოს, ისეთ რაღაცებს გვავალებენ, რაც ადრეც არასდროს არ ყოფილაო, ძალიან ეშინიათ, რომ ვერ მოახერხებენ მობილიზებას ხალხის. თუ ჩვენ მივდივართ იმაზე, რომ პირველ რიგში ძალიან ბევრი ხალხი მივიდეს ადგილობრივ არჩევნებზე, ქართული ოცნება პრაქტიკულად მოუწოდებს ივანიშვილს, რომ არავინ არ მივიდეს, იმიტომ რომ მაინც არაფერს არ ცulis, რომ ამას მეორე დღეში ასჩერ. ესე იგი, რახან მათ არ უნდათ, რომ ხალხი მივიდეს, ხალხი უნდა მივიდეს. რახან ისინი ამბობენ, რომ არაფერს არ ცulis, ესე იგი, ყველაფერს ცulis. მათი ენა უნდა გადმოითარგმნოს ზუსტად საწინააღმდეგოდ, რასაც ისინი ამბობენ. და რას ცulis? პირველ რიგში ცulis იმას, რომ საერთაშორისო დამკვირვებელი რომიც ამდენად ჩამოდის ევროპარლამენტარების დელეგაცია, ჩამოდის ამერიკის კონგრესის დაფინანსებით მადლენ ოლბრაიტი ყოფილი სახელმწიფო დივანი და თავის დელეგაციით. როდესაც ისინი დაინახავენ, რომ ქართულმა ოცნება ვერ დააგროვა ეს 53%, ჩაერთოვა მეორე მექანიზმი და მესამე მექანიზმი. მეორე მექანიზმი რა არის? არა ის, რომ ევროპელები ეტყვიან, რომ 53%-ია და მოდით ახლა დაუბრუნდეთ შარლ-მიშელის ხელშეკრულებას, რომლიდანაც ისინი სრულად ყველა ნორმის დარღვევით გავიდნენ და ეს არის წარმოუდგენელი სირცხვილი ისტორიული საქართველოსთვის ასე გასვლა ევროკავშირის ხელმძღვანელობის მიერ შედგენილი ხელშეკრულებიდან. ეს არის დანაშაული ქართველების წინაშე. მაგრამ არ მოხდება სერიოზული მიწოლა თუ ქართულმა ხალხმა არ გამოხატა ხმის ჩაგდების შემდეგ უკვე ნება საქართველოს მოედნებზე, ქუჩებში, სამუშაო ადგილებზე, ყველა ქალაქში, ყველა სოფელში და ყველა დასახლებულ პუნქტში იმისათვის, რომ მას შემდეგ რაც ოცნება წააგებს არჩევნებს, ოცნება დაუბრუნდეს ხელშეკრულებას და დანიშნოს რიგარიში საპარლამენტო არჩევნები. ეს თავრობა შეიძლება არჩევნებით, მაგრამ ეს თავრობა შეიძლება არჩევნებით, რომელიც იქნება საპარლამენტო, რომელიც დაინიშნება იმ არჩევნების შემდეგ, რომელიც ჩვენ უნდა ყველანი ერთად მივიდეთ. რთული კონსტრუქცია, მაგრამ ეს არის ერთადერთი კონსტრუქცია, რომელიც საქართველოს მოუტანს გამარჯვებას. What I'm saying is that actually very briefly, our main goal is to bring back to the agreement of Charles-Michel, but this is like 2-3 stages process, which means that first we need to vote, and the point here is that the Georgian government is telling on a daily basis Georgian citizens the vote makes no difference. Whatever they vote for, it will not change the equation, and that's why we should go and vote. Elections matter, and this is very important. Second, we know that they are going to rig these elections. Let's not fool ourselves about that. Look, the mathematics don't match simply. Last year, exit polls indicate absolute one figures, and then they rewrote all the protocols. For instance, in presidential elections in the city of Batumi, they had 18,000 votes, and suddenly 2 years later, when their support has dwindled much more, very significantly, and everyone in Georgia knows that, they had double of that votes almost. It just doesn't match. Mathematics don't match. In presidential elections in 2019, in first round, they got 40%, our candidate got 40%, and every other 40% vote went to opposition votes. And then suddenly all opposition votes are evaporated and Georgian Dream won. It just doesn't happen like this in normal countries. Mathematics are not there. Იმას ვთქვათ, რომ 2019-ში 40% იყო ზურაბიშვილმა, 40% ვაშაძემ და 40% დანარჩენმა ოპოზიციამ. მე ეს 40%-მა უცებ რატომღაც გადაინაცვლა ყოლაბაში ქართული ოცნების. ასეთი რამე სოფლიო ქვეყნებში, სადაც არის ნამდვილი დემოკრატია, არ ხდება აპრიორი. მათემატიკურად არ ითვლება. ბათუმში მიიღეს 18,000 ხმა სალომე ზურაბიშვილის არჩევნებზე და 2 წლის შემდეგ, როცა მათი მხარდაჭერა ბევრად უფრო დაცემული იყო, მიიღეს 34,000 ხმა. რანაირად ხდება მათემატიკურად ეს? ხო გასაგებია, რომ ჩვეულებრივად ხვალ რო დაჭერას დაიწერენ 56,000 ხმას. და ამიტომ ხა თავს ნუ გავისულელებთ, მაგრამ იმისათვის, რომ ჩვენ ვიყოთ ლეგიტიმურები პროცესში, ჩვენ ვიყოთ ლეგიტიმურები, ჩვენ უნდა მივიდეთ არჩევნებზე. მათ უნდა თუ ჩვენ არჩევნებზე არ მივიდეთ. ჩვენ უნდა საბოლოო ჯამში ვაკეთოთ ის, რაც არის ჩვენ აი ხა ამერიკის კონგრესში რა აი ყველა მეუბნება. ჩვენ დავიღალეთ საქართველოს და ისმის ერთი და იგივე ფრაზა. ძალიან გვიყვარს საქართველო, მაგრამ თუ ქართულ ხალხს თვითონ არ უნდა თავისუფლება და ნორმალური დემოკრატიული სისტემა, ჩვენ რა უშაობთ. ჩვენ გვაქვს ბევრი სხვა პრობლემა სოფლიოში. ამას დაახლოებით ისე ჟღერს ბაიდენმა რომ ავღანელების თუ არ უნდა ბრძოლა, ჩვენ რატომ უნდა ბრძოლოთ მათ ნაცვლად. მე ეს ფრაზა მოვისმინე გუშინ და გუშიწინ. ერთი 30 ჯერ არ მაგრამ ერთი 15 ჯერ ალბათ მოვისმინე. თუ თქვენ თვითონ არ გინდათ თავისუფლება, ჩვენ რა შუაში ვართ. რას დადიხართ და რას გვეწუწუნებით აქ. მე ესე არ მეუბნებიან, იმიტომ რომ ძველი რაღაც რეპუტაცია ის შემჭი. მაგრამ დაახლოებით ესე ჟღერს მათი ენიდან რომ განმოვთარგმნოთ დიპლომატიურად. და ამიტომ ეს კითხვა ჩვენ უნდა დავუსვათ. ჩვენ ქართულმა ხალხმა უნდა თქვას, ჩვენ საკითხს ამერიკელებმა თუ არ შემოიღეს სანქციები, არაფერი არ გვეშველება. თუ ხელი არ გავანძლეთ, ამერიკელები არ შემოიღებენ სანქციებს. მიშა თუ ჩამო არ ჩამოვა არაფერი არ გოშელება. მე რა თქმა უნდა შევასრულებ იმას რაც თქვი, მაგრამ თუ ხელი არ გავაძიათ, მე არანაირ მიშას აქვს ორი ხელი და ორი ფეხი. ერთი პირი. და იმ პირსაც დააფარებენ ორ წუთში უპრობლემოდ. თუ ქართულმა ხალხმა არ განძლია ხელი, ვერც მიშა ვერაფერს ვერ შორის. ამას აქვს ყველაფერს თავისი ლოგიკა. ამიტომ ჩვენ დაგვჭირდა რამდენიმე დღე იმისათვის, რომ ვიმოქმედოთ. ჩვენ უნდა მე ძალიან მიხარია, რომ არის ძალიან საინტერესო ახალგაზრდობა საქართველოს, სრულიად სხვადასხვა ჯგუფებში, მაგალითად, ძალიან ჩემი მეგობრები ახლა უტარებდნენ ტრეინინგს გირჩის შემადგენლობას ბათუმში და მიყვებოდნენ, რომ აი უბრალოდ სუპერ პროგრესულად აღზრდება, ყველაფერი ზუსტად იციან რაც ხდება. ეს უბრალოდ ესე არსად არ წავა. არაფერი ჩვენი ძალიან აქტიური ქმედებების გარეშე არაფერი არ შეიცვლება, მაგრამ ქმედებებისთვის უნდა ვიყოთ ზად. წინააღმდეგ შემთხვევაში საქართველოს გავს კლასში ჩარჩენილს. დემოკრატიის თვალსაზრისით გაგვისწრო სომხეთმა, ალბათ ეს უფრო მტკივნეული უნდა იყოს ქართველებისთვის, რა ვიცი, ძველი კონკურენციიდან გამომდინარე, ყირგიზეთმა, რომელთაც ადრე ქართველები ზემოდან ქვემოთ უყურებდნენ, უკრაინაზე აღარ ვლაპარაკობ და ეკონომიკური განვითარების თვალსაზრისით ჩვენ ჩავრჩეთ სადღაც საერთოდ მეათე ხარისხოვან სიტუაციაში და რაც შეეხება ზოგადად ქვეყნის არსებობას, საერთაშორისო რეპუტაციას და ამ შემდეგ ჩვენ ვართ უკვე უმაღლესი, ჩვენ თამაშობთ უმაღლეს ლიგაში, ჩვენ ვიტანდით გოლებს, ჩვენ გქონდა მატჩები, რომელსაც თელი მსოფლიო უყურებდა, ჩვენ ვაცეკვებდით ამერიკის ერთ პრეზიდენტად ჩამოვიყვანეთ საქართველოს ჩემ პრეზიდენტობის დროს 1, 2, 3 ამერიკის პრეზიდენტი. და ახლა ჩვენ გვაქვს სიტუაცია 1, 2, 3 ამერიკის პრეზიდენტი და 2 ამერიკის პრეზიდენტობის კანდიდატი ხილარი და მაკეინი. ოდიშ კერიც 3 ამერიკის პრეზიდენტობის კანდიდატი. და ეხლა ვართ ქვეყანა, რომელსაც კიდე ესენი მოვიდნენ და კიდე ესენი გაგაკუნებენ კარებზე, ესეთ რეაქცია აქვს დაახლოებით კონგრესში. იმიტომ რომ 1000 გვარი პატარა პარტია უკან, რომელიც სხვა სიტყვა არ მაქვს მე, რომელიც იღებს სხვა საერთო წყაროებიდან დაფინანსებას, რა თქმა უნდა არ ეხება ყველა პოლიტიკურ პარტიას. ხირაობს ლობისტებს, დადის, უცხოელებს აწუხებს, იმის მაგალითად საკუთარ მოქალაქეებს დაელაპარაკო და საკუთარ მოქალაქეებს მიცენ განცდა, რომ მათ ხელშია ყველაფერი. ამიტომ ჩვენ ვიბრძოლებთ ძალიან აქტიურად, მე ვიბრძოლებ ძალიან აქტიურად. მე არ ვაპირებ არაფერი გავითვალისწინო გარდა იმისა, რაც არის სწორი საქართველოსთვის. საქართველოსთვის არის სწორი მორჩეს ლექციების კითხვა. მორჩეს უბრალოდ რომ პოლიტიკოსები უყვებოდნენ, რომ ესე უნდა იყოს და ისე უნდა იყოს ტელევიზიიდან. ჩვენ გვჭირდება პირადი მაგალითით, პირადი თავგანწირვით, პირადი ქმედებებით გავიყოლოთ ხალხი. და არა ტელევიზიიდან წაკითხული ლექციებით. არავის აღარ აინტერესებს ეს ლექციები. და რა თქმა უნდა, ჩვენ მე მთლიანად ხარს უჭერ ნიკამელიას და მის ჯგუფს თბილისში, ესე როგორც ყველა ჩვენ კანდიდატს საქართველოს მასშტაბით, იმიტომ რომ უბრალოდ შუა მართა გაკრეფილია, სხვა პარტიები თითქმის არცეც უბრალოდ პულსი აღარ ესინჯება. ეს ასია, ვიცი რაც ხდება, ინფორმაცია მაქვს ონლაინ რეჟიმში პრაქტიკულად. ნუ ესეც სიმპტომატურია სიტუაციისთვის. ეს არის ის, რასაც ჩვენ აუცილებლად ამჯერად გამოვიყენებთ ქვეყნისთვის სასარგებლოდ. საქართველოს სჭირდება სწრაფი განვითარება, სწრაფი წინსვლა. ბოლოს გეტყვით, ახლა გამოაცხადე კონკურსი ინოვაციურ იდეებს. როდესაც გამოაცხადე კონკურსი და ვთქვა, რომ ვინც გაიმარჯვებს, რომ ვინც კარგი იდეები იქნება, ჩამოვიყვან უკრაინაში. რამდენიმე პარტია. ესე იგი, I'm finishing just. და უნდა გითხრათ, რომ მეგონა რომ ძალიან ბევრი გიჟი რაღაცას გამოაგზავნა, რაღაც სისულელებს. არც ერთი სულელური იდეა არ მიმიღა. მოიყავ გაოგნებული. რამდენიმე ასეული ერთმანეთზე უკეთეს რაღაც გამოაგზავნა. ასეთი არაფერი არ ხდებოდა 2003 წლის წინ. 2003 წლის წინათ ჩვენ გქონდა დარბაზები, იდეების ისა, ნუ როგორც წესი ცოტა სოფლის გიჟების შემოტევა იყო ხოლმე. და არავის არ მინდა ვაწყენო, ბევრი ნიჭიერი კაი ხალხიც იყო, მაგრამ ისინიც ბევრი იყო. ეხა არც ერთი არ იყო. ან ყველა სოფლის გიჟი გადაბარგდა ქართულ ოცნებაში და თანამდებობებზეა. ალბათ ეს მართალია. ან რეალურად მართლა რაღაცა ფენაში ძალიან გაიზარდა დონე და ხალხი თავის თავს ხედავს კონტექსტში სოფლიოში და უფრო მეტიც რომ მივიღე ჩვენი ეს წინადადები 5-10-15 გვერდიანი ოზურგეთიდან, ხულოდან, საგარეჯოდან, სიტყვაზე ლესიჭინიდან, ჩხოროწყუდან ყველა ინგლისური ძალიან ბევრი იყო დაწეული კარგი ინგლისურით. რატოღაც ვცვლიდი რომ მე ინგლისურად რა გამიგცა. ეს ჩვენი იმის შედეგია. დიდი მადლობა ყურადღებისათვის და დიდი მადლობა. I see Viola. I'm terribly sorry. The last thing I should have done is to divert the Viola from Cramon for speaking because she'll be angry at me now. I didn't see you on the screen. I'm terribly sorry for this long conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you very much for your contribution. I think for Viola von Cramon and Mikheil Gahler and for myself, it's a little bit difficult now to figure out. I mean, you said something in English, but probably the most interesting things with. Yes, please.
The only last thing you should know, what I said in the end, that we have an amazing generation. I made a competition for new ideas from Georgians, and I got 300 or so amazing new ideas for future reformation of Georgia. We have a new generation mostly, which is extremely promising, and we should give them a chance now. They should somehow contribute to this future development, and I see my role personally as handing over them this thing, because there is this generation there. I'm proud of them, and I'm sure we should all make sure that they get their chance now.
Thank you. There was, you mentioned something in your English part about the first round and the second round, 40-40, and then the numbers in the end didn't add up, and you had another example like that. That sounded a little bit interesting. That's the kind of stuff where I would, for the moment, say in Germany that hasn't happened yet, at least, okay. Can I ask Viola von Cramon, is that okay that you can give us from your perspective, because I mentioned before, thank you for coming, by the way, and I guess your train is late, that's why you're still in the train. We all know that in the meantime. I mentioned before that you are in the Green Party, and then the Green Party does not have an alliance partner in Georgia, so you are kind of a neutral politician, and that's why I would like that. But on the other hand, you are an excellent expert on Georgian matters, and you're well known in that context, and that's why I would like to ask you, from your point of view, to give us a little bit an idea what's happening there with the elections.
Well, thank you very much to all of you, the organizers. I hope that our train will hold this connection as long as I would like to say some words. Well, I think Misha in that respect is absolutely right. It is a very important election, and I do hope we see a high turnout, that's for sure. And we have to really mobilize each and every one, each and every voter, the young generation, the older generation, and everyone has to be convinced that this is not just a local election, this is just not any municipal election. It is about also the political future of Georgia. That means that each and everyone has really to present himself, herself with a program, with a vision, with a concept, so people are convinced that it's about the future. Just to say it is about a lot, but not really presenting any content, ideas, concept, programs. That is definitely not enough. And what I've experienced from my last visits in Georgia, people are really sick and tired of this polarization, but they're also sick and tired of any kind of boycott, what we have seen during the last elections. We all know it wasn't free and fair, and wasn't not in the way we would like to see the election being conducted, that's for sure. But for me, there was never a reason to boycott and to put up a show like it was. I'm always backing each and everyone to put pressure on the authorities to perform much better, and also to have equal access, and in the meanwhile improve the legal basis for freer, fairer, more inclusive, more transparent election. Absolutely agree with that. But this kind of polarization really harmed this country and also contributed to the fatigue, political fatigue, which we see now in Georgia, unfortunately. This, of course, was fueled in by many factors, and it is, I mean, not easy to explain in a couple of minutes. But that's why, for example, the European Parliament, and Mikheil can confirm this, has decided very early that no matter which agreement is being upheld, we will come with the European Parliament election. And we hope to see as many short-term observers as we normally see in a full-fledged mission. This is really uncommon for a municipal election. Let me stress this. Normally, we only cover parliamentary election, presidential election, but normally the European Parliament, neither the OSZE come with a full-fledged mission for municipal election. But because we have this very special situation in Georgia right now, we have decided, and we know that it will be good to observe on the ground with as many independent international observers as we can. So hopefully not too many people are afraid of the corona situation. I think this has improved as well. That's a very good indication. I hope that we also can cover as much as possible before the election day. So we have a comprehensive report, an interims report, I think is already produced. So yeah, the main topic will be how the reaction after E-Day will be for the groups who are still in parliament. And this would be maybe my message to Misha himself. Make sure that people do not leave the parliament afterwards, even if they are not happy, even if they think there's fraud, the 43% threshold was not met. Please make sure that people stay reasonable, people stay responsible, people stay in parliament, and let's work together on a strong, let's say, message how to come to snap elections or how to improve through parliamentary actions. But don't leave parliament again and don't polarize this society. This would be my main message.
Thank you very much. Please stay there. We would like to come back to you. Yeah, okay. The 43% threshold, when I look in the room here, is there anybody who does not know what the 43% threshold is linked to these elections? Because in that case, we can shortly explain it. Okay, because that's a crucial point. I mean, if you imagine what Viola von Cramon just mentioned, there is a local election and now observers come from an international context to go to those local elections as if it would be a national government election. And that is only because of the negotiations that happened before. And you see that this 43% threshold is really an extremely important issue in that context. Now, you just told me before that yes, the European Parliament made you the observer for the elections in Georgia now, right? Well, if I just can say a few words, Mikheil Gahler, I introduced him before. He is actually living in Hattersheim, but is a member of the European Parliament, always traveling back and forth. He's a lot here in Frankfurt and in the area. And in the Parliament, he deals with foreign affairs and security policy. Also someone with excellent knowledge on Georgia. And now you tell us yourself, please, about.
Indeed, and since this morning, 11:15, I was voted to be the chair of the European Parliament's delegation to observe these elections. As such, we are part of the OSCE or ODIHR, the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights. So this long-term mission, and there is also from the Council of Europe, from their Chamber of Local Authorities, they also have provided for a delegation. Overall, on election day itself, not now, the long term are not that many, but on election day itself, the OSCE will provide around 350 observers throughout the country. And as you rightly said, the exception is, I recall only one case, we did it once also in Tunisia. Now there might be another argument to look closer to Tunisia because the president there is somewhat running mad or crazy, but don't quote me on that. As we care for Georgia, and Georgia matters for us in the Eastern Partnership, we have decided, and also asked the OSCE, of course, to be present there. And they were also invited, otherwise we wouldn't go. And for me, it's a special situation now. I have to be very carefully, have to choose my wording in order to not give the impression as if I was biased in any way. But I can assure you that the European Parliament, in a rare, broad spectrum of relevant parties, we really are on the same footing, on the same line when it comes how to address the situation in Georgia. There is really a broad consensus that we address our messages to all relevant stakeholders, to the different parties, of course, to the government, which is always more responsible than anybody else for holding an election and for providing the framework. And insofar, our messages are clear. Now, as election observers, we are not, so to say, part of to implement the 19th April agreement. That is for Charles Michel and his people, for our EU delegation to follow up. But on the substance, of course, in whatever function we are there, we are fully sharing and supporting that. And the aspect of the 43%, that is not a threshold in the sense that any party has to pass it to get a seat. No, the 43% was a commitment from the ruling party to say, okay, there was criticism from the opposition on the parliamentary elections. They were not happy about that. But if they return to the parliament, that is part of the deal that was brokered by Charles Michel, and take their seats. And there was an amnesty for Mr. Melia that was granted by the president. And if the nomination of the judges does not or does follow according to the recommendations of the Venice Commission, then the 43% for us, Georgian Dream, is the threshold insofar as if we go beyond, it's okay for us, but if we have less than 43%, we will call for a fresh election. So we are not, from our side, now reinventing any additional preconditions, but our stance is, as European Union, including the Parliament, that we call on all signatories, have they been from the beginning or come in later, to be part and to be committed to what has been agreed. And indeed, as Viola said, if it were that the substance of the commitments are not met, and there have been statements also from the European Union in this regard, from the United States, if they are not met, we still call on as many stakeholders possible to stick to it, because we can best, as European Union and as European Parliament, demand from the different stakeholders that if the one side commits and stays committed, then we can demand it also from the other side. We are afraid that if, in a way, anybody goes away from that, it will result again in a heightened confrontation. And we all know who is most happy about that. That is the man in the Kremlin. If a country like Georgia gets at loggerheads with each other internally and loses its momentum on its way towards Europe. And that is what we do not want. That is why the European Union is engaging so much, and that is why we also decided exceptionally to attend and observe also this election for the sake of the citizens of Georgia. That is our point of departure. Our point of departure is not the one or the other party or the one or the other politician, but it is what the citizens deserve, that the political class has to deliver, and that is what we are aiming at.
We have a question here from the audience.
Ja, ja. Sogar Hessisch.
Ja, Sie haben ja gesprochen, was Charles Michel in Georgien vereinbart hat, dass da ein Abkommen unterzeichnet worden ist. Und darin steht, also darüber war ich als Bürger sehr schockiert, dass wenn georgische Traum jetzt 41 oder 43% in den Wahlen als Stimmen einnimmt, dann bleiben sie an der Macht. Also wie gerecht, also Sie leben in einer Demokratie, Sie auch, und wie finden Sie das? Also was würden die Deutschen denken, wenn man denn sagt, die CDU nimmt jetzt nur 41%, führt aber das Land.
Okay, I'll put that. I'll put that in English because there are people.
I'll do it in English then.
Okay.
So the question was about the agreement that was done and about these 43%. Whether any party would here in Germany accept if they don't get the 43, then they would accept it, but otherwise not. Well, I think in the given specific circumstances, I think we had to see to it that all the relevant stakeholders would be part of it. And it's by no means a beauty contest. We would have preferred that in the run-up to the last elections, during the elections, that there wouldn't have been a need to question the results or the very outcome. I mean, many of you who are from Georgia, you are aware of the political atmosphere and the way of doing politics of the different parties. Insofar, for us as foreign interested observers, we try to find ways and means forward and to get the parties on compromises that are, as I said, not a beauty contest. We are not in a comfortable situation where, yes, there will be a winner and a loser, or two winners or two losers on Sunday's election in Germany, but it is not the end of the world. Nobody will afterwards boycott the parliament. Nobody will contest that there was something not correctly counted, because we are not in this situation, fortunately. But because there is a competition and there is also a wish to win for each and every party, but there is not a basic mistrust that, for instance, the sitting government would abuse its position for certain advantages. And in the given situation in Germany, I mean, the two who are currently in the government for another 3 days up to the election, they are the main contenders. So there is no comparison to the situation in Georgia, and we had to find a way to get all parties around a table and to agree to something that is, it is for us strange. Compromise, yes. Compromise is the word, but indeed, to link the result of a local election to a national issue, whether they should stay or not, it is nothing that deserves a prize for political beauty, but it is what was achievable, and that is where we are.
That's a little bit the issue with democracy, that without a compromise, it doesn't work. I mean, if I look at the German elections, we will probably need 3 parties to come together to form a government, and everybody has very strong views on how the country should be run. If those 3 parties are not able to negotiate with each other and compromise in the end, we will never have a government. And who wants something like that? Nobody. So, and that's a little bit, I think that shows very well about the situation of compromise. You wanted to say something, Nino? No. Please, if there are any contributions, questions.
May I add maybe to what Mikheil Gahler said a few words, if you don't mind, because I have been an OSCE election observer in 2016. So of course there was always a certain level of fraud and violation, and even during Misha times, I guess there were, I don't know to which extent, but of course, if you look through the OSCE ODIHR final reports, there were a couple of recommendations for improvement. There were a certain level of fraud and violation and so on. That shouldn't watering down the extent of violation last time, but it's really hard for us due to Corona restriction to tell you exactly how much more it was compared to others. And this is also not our job to do so. I think it is much more the job to try to bring everyone at the table, at the negotiation table. That's what Danielson did. That's what Charles Michel did. That's what many others from the European Union did. The leadership was there. We tried a lot. It was not easy, but it's not to be blamed just one side. And this is, I think, important to stress also in this meeting, in this conversation. This is not like black and white, unfortunately, in Georgia. There's a lot of grayish, and everyone has the responsibility to be reasonable and not to heat up the political situation. I fully understand how the situation is, and I do know that the less, let's say, support one party has, the more they try to compensate with vote buying and with all other kind of intimidation, voters intimidation against candidates, new parties, and so on. It's a terrible situation. I do not want to overlook this, but as I said, it has been in former elections the case, maybe not to that extent as we have seen it in last year.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saakashvili. With all these positive words, how do you look at the upcoming elections? What is your
you know, Viola, that I've been supportive of participation of our members of parliament in parliament. I was in minority in my party, frankly, at the beginning, for obvious reasons, because people thought that parliamentary process for all these years haven't brought them any desirable results, and that it was manipulated. But I believe still that, you know, no matter what happens outside the parliament, no matter what happens in the streets, no matter what happens on this polling these districts, you still need people inside that building to voice these concerns, and they just staying without that people is not going to help the situation. It's going to worsen the situation. So even if it's like 5 people, and we have much more than 5, we have up to 30 MPs, they should be present inside and fight their battle inside. That's for sure. That's one thing. The other thing is that indeed what they are trying to tell them, through this intimidation and also violence, and you know that we had some incidents in previous days, is that elections is already decided and makes no sense. So this is very important to tell people, yes, please come to the elections. We know that this will be not the last act of the drama. It's not going to solve our issues, but without it, we cannot solve our issues. So if we want legitimacy for further actions and further demands, and plus for the further involvement of international community, we need to show the result, and we need to be there. Even if the result gets stolen, then we should need to make the point. And last year COVID really made it very hard. And this year it's really looks like 300 something of people that would observe, plus I think some more are coming from some other places. Yeah, the local NGOs, there is alternative central election commission made by some younger activists, which are they've been active in previous years, but they don't really represent any party, but they're good. These are the hopeful signs. So there are people who would do that. We all know what Ivanishvili is up to. Good news is that we know. The problem is that in 2018, 2019, when he basically lost presidential elections and second round, he manipulated it. He was not ready for anything. He was very surprised to discover in first round that they're losing. Now, in last year and this year, they're ready for manipulations and they're ready for violence. This is a big difference from 2019. And it's for the reasons that they're going exactly to compensate loss of their support through this means, which basically discredits the election process. But we have no alternative to the election process if we want to say democracy. What really made me very anxious in the US Congress now, when I met, for instance, with people like, with the senators and with the congressmen, all of them are repeating like mantra, oh, we have Georgia fatigue, we have Ukraine fatigue here. Okay, you have Georgia fatigue, and then they say, if Georgian people is not willing to stand up for its own freedom, why should we? And I cannot but agree with them, sorry. Neither European parliamentarians, with all due respect, and I think now Europe's voice is much more powerful locally than American voice. It has not been like this before. I have to say that the head of local European mission, Karl, is very good and is very active and proactive. And we see that he is really going after idealistic real positions. We see even in what the Americans or the others have to say, lots of geopolitical and other context and underlying motivation, while Herzl is all about the main principles, and that's important. So what we need to do is to strengthen this European line. Ultimately, it is also for Georgia coming back to its natural house, Europe, also through this battle, which we need to make as European and as civilized as we can, provided the circumstances that we are dealing with people who are, well, not really, they thought they could imitate it, and now they don't even pretend to do that. They are just, sometimes they sound like Lukashenko, but we should still be very combative, but stay within civilized norms. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to say something that is at first maybe a strange idea. If you, in your family, you own a business, and that business is owned by the members of the family, and one day you have an argument about how to run that business, then you will talk to each other and so on and so on. And even if it is a big family, you will take part in that process because you are an owner of this business. And you are the owner of the society in Germany and also in Georgia. In every democracy, this is the case. And if you as the owner lose interest, if you do not participate anymore, if you do not go to the meetings anymore, and you turn away, your case is certainly lost. So your only chance is to go to participate. And that means in a democracy to vote and be angry about the result and to say, as Mr. Saakashvili just described it, maybe you say, I don't like it, and this is not the solution. You go back again. If you have a business, that's the same thing. Sometimes you come out of that meeting with your friends or with your family, whoever owns that business, and you say, no, I'm not really satisfied. I'm not really happy with that. And you come back and you will talk about it again. And I think from this point of view, for me, I don't understand how people can say, I'm sick and tired of politics, I'm sick and tired of going voting. That's the worst thing you can do. If you do this, you give it away to other people and they will take care of you. And who those other people are, you probably have an opinion about it. I think that's a very, very important point. And there's another issue that I would like to mention. I understood that in Georgia, if you have an election, the voter booth where you go to vote, you can go there as a citizen and stay all day and observe what is happening. You can also observe the voting process, the counting process afterwards. And by the way, there's the same in Germany. Nobody ever goes, but in Germany, if a citizen come in the evening and says, okay, I want to stay here and watch you, how you count those votes, we have to let him in. And you have that same possibility in Georgia. It's difficult when you are in Frankfurt to go to Georgia, but you can be an observer yourself. You don't have to wait that the observers come from European Union or from other places. Sorry, that was a little bit the teacher telling you something. I'm sorry for that kind of attitude, but you wanted to say something, please.
Ja, aber das ist ja einfach. Hier in Deutschland, das kann man doch mit Georgien gar nicht vergleichen. Ich würde jetzt nicht sagen, dass die Deutschen mehr an die Politik interessiert sind als die Georgier. Das Gegenteil ist tatsächlich der Fall. Nur wenn du nicht mal weißt, wie viele Wähler du in Georgien hast, du weißt, in deiner Umgebung sind alle gegen diese Partei, aber irgendwie am Ende gewinnt trotzdem diese Partei. Und das passiert immer wieder. Das Volk ist ja nicht dumm. Dann denkt sie, okay, das ist der Fall. Also das kann man mit Deutschland gar nicht vergleichen, weil in Deutschland wissen wir, es wird genau das abgebildet, was man in Umgebung auch wahrnimmt und nicht, dass jetzt auf einmal die Linken Oberhand gewinnen.
Yeah, I'm just translating it briefly what she said. She said, well, it's not to be compared with Georgia, like in Germany. When you're in Georgia and it's you and your friends and all of them are against a certain party and they still keep winning, then they wonder how that can happen. That is about what she asked. And my answer to that is, we are coming as election observers, not only for election day, in order to look whether the people can cast their vote in secret and whether those who sit in the polling stations can count. They can count. That is not the issue. And whether the protocol that is signed by all party representatives then on the ground, whether that is correct. I think an election is a process, and that starts with the overall conditions, the legal conditions, the transparency of the voters' register, the independence of the election administration, and the access to the media overall. And all these aspects are checked and evaluated by the long-term mission. They are with their probably they are with 15 teams, many weeks in the country, covering the area and assessing the situation on the ground, not only in Tbilisi or in Batumi, but they are really all around and assess how overall the atmosphere is. As we speak, there are the reports already in the headquarters in Tbilisi. There are interim reports, there is an assessment, and that is only part of the entire exercise. And the decisive point is really, do those who have to conduct the elections, do they live up to their own rules? And if something goes wrong, is there a process to remedy that? So if a voter sees, oh, there is vote stuffing, if that were so, and he reports to the competent authority, is there a follow-up? That is what we are observing. And then we have the assessment. We are not the ones who are then interfering in a sense, I've seen you. That's not our task, but it's our task to assess when voters see an irregularity and they make a complaint in this regard, whether that is duly followed up. And that, I mean, we have huge experience both in the OSCE framework and also in the framework when the European Union outside the OSCE area conducts its own election observation missions. In so far, our standards are the highest available ones. And I think when we are getting an invitation, we assume that those who invite us expect us to express what we have seen and what is our impression. So insofar, the voters can also trust that we as international observers and also the local observers. Fortunately, you have a civil society that is active and which engages, and that is a good sign. And our presence should encourage, especially also the local observers and all citizens, to put trust into these elections, and whether their trust or their confidence is justified or not, that remains to be seen when we assess the conduct of the elections.
So in other words, it's not easy, it's a fight, isn't it?
What?
It's always a fight. In our case, it's a fight.
Bitte.
The micro, so that Viola can listen to you.
Dankeschön. Mein Name ist Anna Blumenberg, geborene Apakidze. Also ich möchte eins sagen, das ist meine Meinung. Aber wenn Wahlbeobachter nach Georgien kommen, ich weiß nicht, wie lange sie da verbleiben, aber Fakt ist, die Wahlen, das ist totale Fälschung. Also das ist manipulativ ohne Ende. Also Menschen gehen zwar wählen, aber die Stimmen, die abgegeben werden, das ist absolute Fälschung. Und ich weiß nicht, wie man dann mit diesen Zahlen immer wieder diese georgische Traum gewinnt. Das ist also ein Kreislauf ohne Ende. Was wollen Sie jetzt, wie wollen Sie uns helfen, damit wir diesen Kreislauf für immer oder, also das Volk muss das beenden, aber Sie müssen uns irgendwie helfen.
Mr. Klipp, maybe could I go first, because I'm afraid I will end up in a Funkloch very soon. So maybe give me a quick
Yes.
opportunity to react on this. Since I have been a chief observer and I am currently chief observer for Iraq, and I will also go to Kosovo soon, where you have very similar situation. Honestly, if you go through the OSCE ODIHR different reports from the different elections in Georgia, they don't differentiate too much. What I was saying before is there was always a certain level of fraud, but it's not that black as you have portrayed it, really not. I mean, if you have proofs that everything is rigged and everything is fraud, that's not true. I mean, what we do as observers, we have a core team of 12, sometimes 15 people, experts in different fields. We work together 6 weeks ahead of the election day. We cover all kinds of different fields, such as party finance, social media, legal base, access for different opposition parties, candidates, and so on. So it is important to really consider what is in the report. It's normally not like black and white, it's very grayish. And this is what matters in the end. And this is also what for example, the colleagues from the European Parliament will head for when they are now observers. They will rely on the core team, on the experts, but also on the local experts from different civil society, as well as on their own long-term observers. So the long-term observers and the core team, they stay normally like 2, 3, 4 months in the country. If you have a second round, they stay 2 months after the second round. They observe everything, also all legal challenges. They observe all kinds of post-electoral disputes. So this is quite, let's say, balanced overall overview. But of course, I mean, this mechanism of fraud, vote buying, intimidation, people get, I don't know what is the current rate now for a vote. This is there and you cannot prevent that. If people are ready to sell their vote, I mean, it needs 2 people to tangle. Yeah? It needs 2 persons to tangle. It's not just the party who offers the money, it's also the person who takes it. And I would really ask each and everyone in Georgia, if they think they want a stronger democracy, not to sell their vote, but really to go and make their own decision. And that's also sometimes maybe not completely understood by each and everyone.
And I would also add, simply technically, what I've seen, and I've really observed many elections in many countries. I was 3 times the chief observer of the European Union in Pakistan, and you can imagine the challenges in Pakistan. And but there's also a very active civil society, and in the polling stations, once a result was proclaimed and certified by the different party representatives, they took a copy, they made a photo, they sent it and did a parallel vote count. I mean, there are very many ways and means by different parties or civil society organizations to really systematically assess whether the results that were established in the polling station, so to say, end up in the same way in the centers where votes are counted, and then whether they are the final results that are proclaimed. And that is what we always ask for transparency on all levels. So not only in the polling station itself. And if you see someone, I mean, there is a 100-meter distance obligation for any party representative not to interfere. And if you see people with their big SUVs, black-clothed, strong men, as I saw in 2016, simply take a photo. Or when they were inviting people after the vote into their dark cars or minibuses, I took a photo and I showed it to the Prime Minister at the time in the evening when we were in their headquarters and say, hey, Prime Minister, I don't want to see that next time. Yeah. And every voter, if you see it, register it and take a photo and send it to an election observation mission or organization. So, when that is also known before, I mean, it should have a preventive effect. If everybody knows now that there is a huge attention, international attention, national attention, what is actually ongoing, that is for those who indeed or allegedly plan something, has a preventive effect. And that is what it should be all about. Our presence should definitely contribute to transparency. And I'm pretty sure that in all parties, there are good people as well. Whether they are on the right point or not, I don't discuss now, but I'm aware through my contacts, through different parties, there are those who are not cynical, who are not only about their own personal fate, but there are in all the parties the good ones who want this country to proceed to democracy. And I would wish that they join forces, be it in the parliament, across the parties, or be it in the public. We have seen people leaving the one or the other parties because they were frustrated of the handling. And insofar, we would encourage all those who really want this democracy to proceed and to progress, and for the citizens not to be frustrated and thinking that democracy is only about the happy few who are enriching themselves. If that were the so to say, the opinion, and the people were getting desperate, that would really be a tragedy. And I don't want, nobody wants that Georgia gets there, but has its ambitious agenda towards a European Union. And that is what the people expect from all office holders, to work in this direction. And that is what you can demand, what you can claim, and really activate yourselves. Now we're here in Germany, but for those who are in Georgia, to really contribute personally to a better democratic situation in the country.
If a crime is committed, you need proof. You need the time and the hour, you need the place where it was committed, and you need to have some evidence if there is a possibility. And with mobile phones, Mikheil Gahler just explained it, there is a way to show this. Only talking about and saying, oh, this is also bad, you ruin democracy. You run the business of the enemies of the democracy if you say it doesn't work. Here in Frankfurt, we are a city. There was a time when everybody was saying, oh, there is so much crime in the city. I can't go out in the streets before Peter Roth became mayor. I remember that time. It was horrible. Okay, that has changed. And that was partly a question of atmosphere, what people were saying. The numbers haven't changed so much. It's very much what is happening in your mind. And if you talk bad about democracy, if you do not believe in democracy, you run the business of the enemy. And they have organized that you think like that. That's what they do. That's called a lot of business on the internet. We wanted to come to an end now, but if you have a short, please.
Vielen Dank. დიდი მადლობა ბატონო პრეზიდენტო. მე ხა ქართულად და გერმანულად დავსვამ შეკითხვას, იმიტომ რომ ყველა აქ თითქმის გერმანულად და ქართულად საუბრობენ. Also mein Name ist Alexander Abesadze. Ich bin Experte für Sicherheitspolitik und mich interessiert, wie sehen Sie die Möglichkeit überhaupt gegen die 5. Kolonne, die in Georgien in der letzten Zeit total aktiv geworden ist, da entgegenzuwirken? ჩემი კითხვა არის, თქვენ როგორ ხედავთ შესაძლებლობას საერთოდ მთლიან ჯამში იმ მე-5 კოლონის წინააღმდეგ, რომელიც საქართველოში ამ ბოლო პერიოდში განსაკუთრებით მთელი აქტივობით არის და იქ მოღვაწეობენ და მოქმედებენ?
Ну, სხვა ჩვენს ამ ხრივ უკრაინა მიცა კარგი მაგალითი, იმიტომ რომ რეალურად უკრაინა მოკეტა პირდაპირ რუსული ფილიალები არხები. ხა ეს მე არ ვარ მომხრე არც ერთი არხის დაკეტვის, მაგრამ ის 3 არხი რომელიც დაკეტეს, ის ჩვეულებრივად მოსკოვური არხები იყო. და თავარი მოკლედ უკრაინელი ივანიშვილი, მედვედჩუკი საშინაო პატიმრობად ჩასვას და იგზის სახში თავის სასახლეში და იქიდან ცხვირს ვერყოფს. და პრაქტიკულად ამის შედეგად მისი პარტიის პოპულარობა, რომელიც რაღაც მომენტში ზელენსკის უსწრებდა, დაეცა 2/3-ით და ძალიან ჩამოვიდა ქვემოთ. ეს არის ნიმუში იმისა, რომ არის ქმედებისა დემოკრატიამ თავისთავად უნდა დაიცვას. ვინც გვიკითხავს ლექციებს, რომ არ უნდა დაიცვას თავი, უბრალოდ ვერ ხვდება ამ სპეციფიკას. I'm talking about how Ukrainians dealt with Medvedchuk and the other people who basically were directly implementing the Russian agenda. It's something else. There is one thing, a homegrown mood, which might be even separatist, but it's homegrown. The other thing is that you are just affiliate of some foreign interest, and it's so obvious when you are getting finance from there. But I have to remind you that Georgian Dream also, Ivanishvili got in 2012 $2 billion from Moscow as a direct financing. 2 billion in a small country like Georgia. What are we talking about? In Ukraine, the scope was less, but the Ukrainians went after them. I'm against shutting down the TV channels. I think there should be competition of ideas. But in Georgia, we have this Sputnik satellite radio, which is basically a Russian mouthpiece. It's not like a legitimate information source, right? And they can do this quite easy. One of the forms of torture, by the way, for some of my friends that were in prison and are still in prison for many years, it just changed only last year, I think, with the intervention of some of the observers that went to see those prisons. They could only see Russian channels in their prison cells. They could only see official Russian channels. That was, I think, this was not by accident, okay? Special საკრებში ქონდათ მარტო ბოლო წლები იმედი და რუსული არხები. და ჩვენი თანამებრძოლებისთვის ეს უბრალოდ წამებას აღემატება, რომ მარტო ვერტეს და NTV-ს და RTR-ს და ამას აყურებიებდნენ. სპეციალურად ეს ხო ვიღაცამ დაჯდა და მოიპიკა, ხო? So what I'm saying is that what in Georgia they're trying to do is to divide the society, polarize the society, to tell them that we all know this game. West are the gays, West are the all kind of moral decay with this and. It works more in Georgia than it works in Ukraine. Ukraine has its own pockets of regions that basically are genuinely like this. There are other issues, linguistic issues, etc., which play well with and somehow coordinate also, unfortunately, with Russian agenda. But that's something else. In Georgia, somehow we have less immunity towards very primitive methods that they're using than in many other countries in the region, and that should be of serious concern to us. That's an issue of education. That's an issue of also church to take its role as a, patriotic institution that really should reach out and basically tell them that, wait a minute, I mean, it's a very Christian value to be tolerant, and it's a very Christian value to not to go and beat up your compatriots, no matter how you disdain them, okay? And not call for violence. People who call for violence, they have nothing to do inside the church. That's obvious for me. And I mean, I think it's obvious for everyone, everywhere. So Christianity and violence cannot be combined in any way. I think any religion cannot be combined with violence, but especially Christianity cannot be combined, period. There is no justification. Anyone who calls to beat up its compatriots is not Christian for me. I mean, I'm saying it as a Christian who has, one of my great-grandfathers was a cardinal, and the other one was, head of the regional Georgian church in Western Georgia. So I have, even in my family, strong religious roots and background, and I don't know what I'm talking about. So that's what we should do, that to counter them with our ideas, but also with our active fight. Because I remember very well, before last year, Shevardnadze's time, they tried to impose on Georgia the idea that Jehovah's Witnesses were the main problem of Georgia. I remember mass rallies, tens of thousands of people, sometimes even 100,000 came out, screaming and shouting that Jehovah's Witness is the main threat to Georgian existence. And there was violence. They were burning their houses. They were going after them. The people were wounded. Someone was even killed. And government was actively encouraging that because if people were busy with Jehovah's Witnesses, they couldn't think about other issues, right? After Rose Revolution, Jehovah's Witnesses, as if they disappeared. Of course, they still existed in the numbers they were, but nobody cared about them anymore. Countries started to develop, to move into, to have other agenda, and no one ever mentioned where it was a very marginal thing. Mama Basim Klavishvili ეგრეთ წოდებული мама დარბოდა, ერთადერთი იყო და ისიც საქართველოს ეკლესიამ განკვეთა და დღეს რო ყვირიან რომ ეკლესიებს ანგრევდნენ, რომ საქართველოს ეკლესიის აქტიური მტერი იყო ის ტიპაში და პოლიცია ჩაერია, ხარა რა პოლიცია მაშინ ყავდა გამოუცდელი, მაგრამ ხალხს ცემდა უბრალოდ, ხო, ცემდა და საშინელებას შედიოდა. და არავის არ გაუპროტესტებია ეს სხვა შორის ეკლესიაში მაშინ. მერე რუსული პროპაგანდა ჩაერთო, რომ ეკლესიებს ანგრევდა და ეს რა ქვია. სიტუაცია იყო, რომ გაქრა საერთოდ თემა იეღოველების ვარდების რევოლუციის შემდეგ. ზუსტად ეს ხდება ახლა. ეხლა გვახმოვანეთ სხვა თემებს, რომ დაივიწყეთ სოციალური პრობლემები, დაივიწყეთ დემოკრატიის არქოლა, დაივიწყეთ ის, რომ ასობით ათასი ჩვენი თანამემამულე, რომ გარბის, ახლა პოლონეთში რა ვნახე ბოლოს კონფერენციაზე რო ვიყავი, ვარშავის აეროპორტი გავსებული ამ რეისებით, ვროცლავი გავსებული ამ რეისებით, ვროცლავი რატო, იმიტომ რომ ვროცლავიდან გერმანიაში გამოყავთ? ხო, კატასტროფა. კატასტროფა და გვეუბნება, ამას არაფერი მნიშვნელობა არ აქვს, ჩვენი მთავარი პრობლემა არიან ისინი, რა ქვია, სექსუალური უმცირესობები. ზუსტად მაგონებს იეღოველების სიტუაციას. ეს არის ტექნოლოგია. ამ ტექნოლოგიის საშუალება ჩვენ მათთან უნდა მივცეთ. მე აი ხა ვინმეს ახლა წინა წლებში ბევრი გიფიქრია თქვენი იეღოველებზე, ან 2003 წელს ხო და 2003 წლამდე ხანდახან მეც კი იძულებული ვიყავი კომენტარი მეკეთებია, იმიტომ რომ ყოველი მეორე ადამიანი ჩემი ამორჩეველი. ამაზე მეკითხებოდი. იმიტომ რომ აწუხებდა მართლა, ეგონათ რომ აი ხა დღე-დღეზე შემოვარდებიან სახში ბავშვებს მოსტაცებენ და ყველა გაიეღოველდება. როგორ დღეს გვეუბნებიან რომ ყველა გაცისფრდება. ხო და ხა ეს ძალიან ერთი ოპერით რამდენჯერმე წამოვგოთ ერთ რეგიონს.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And please really 2 minutes, huh?
2 minutes,
Okay.
yes. Ich sage schnell auf Deutsch und dann auf Georgisch. Hier war sehr viel gesprochen worden, dass wir müde sind. Dieses Fatigue-Syndrom von Georgien. Bitom Katholები ძალიან დაღლილები ვიყოთ პოლიტიკით. ეს ასე არ არის. ქართველები ვართ დაღლილი იმით, რომ არ ვიცით ვინ სად დგას. Wir sind müde davon, dass wir nicht wissen, wo steht wer. Wir wissen es nicht. Ist der Westen Beobachter, dann müssen wir es wissen. Und ist der Westen unser Freund, das müssen wir auch wissen. Freunde reden miteinander. Tu დასავლეთი ჩვენი მეგობარია და მხოლოდ ზედამხედველი მაყურებელია, ეს უნდა ვიცოდეთ. თუ ჩვენი მეგობარია და ჩარევასოს, ესეც უნდა ვიცოდეთ. Das wissen wir leider nicht und das ist das Problem von Georgien. Sobald das Parlament hatte keine einzige Oppositionspartei am Anfang, keine einzige. Und das war außer Gesetz. Parlament war gesetzlos. Ჩვენი პარლამენტი იყო არაკანონიერი, სანამ პარტიები იქ შევიდოდნენ. Das ist nicht lange her, das ist 3 Monate her. Ja? Das ist 3 Monate her. Vor dem Spatoni Charles Michelamde, საქართველოს პარლამენტი იყო არაკანონიერი. Vor dem Charles Michel war unser Parlament außer Gesetz. Punkt 2, parlamentarische Ordnung und Punkt 86 wurde nicht erfüllt. Ich bin seit 27 Jahren Aktivist hier. Ich bin Arzt und Aktivist. Und ich kenne mich sehr gut aus. Punkt 2, Geschäftsordnung des Parlaments und Punkt 86, die wurden übelste Weise missachtet. Und wenn wir sagen, wir sind für Recht, dann muss man das anprangern und nicht sagen, wir setzen jetzt alle Parteien, damit die ins Parlament reinkommen. Das ist nicht gut. Und das war nicht gut. Und das wissen wir, Georgier, dass das nicht gut war. Wir sind nicht dumm. Tut mir leid, ich bin 27 Jahre hier. Ich habe immer noch georgischen Pass. Und ich bin Aktivist in Grüne Partei. Ja? Und es tut mir sehr leid, das zu sagen. Es war Katastrophe, was passiert ist. Es war vollständige Katastrophe. Es ist Katastrophe, als Mutter. პარლამენტში პარტიების შეყვანა ეს იყო კატასტროფა, ეს იყო დიდი შეცდომა, რომელიც დაუშვა დასავლეთმა და ეს უნდა ითქვას.
Frau von Cramon, wollen Sie antworten?
Ja, das Problem ist, dass wir, können Sie mich hören? Ich muss leider die Maske tragen. Weil
perfekt,
ich hier, ja, gut,
gut.
okay. Dass wir es ja, oder dass die Georgier es ja mit unterschiedlichen Methoden versucht haben. Und ich glaube, was wir eben mit Fatigue bezeichnet haben, betraf, also was Misha erzählt hat, oh nein, jetzt spreche ich Deutsch, sorry. I got mixed up by this. Well, maybe this is a little bit difficult to reply on this fully. While I think the fatigue which Misha has referred to was mainly on the side of the international community, not to become too much involved into Georgian domestic issues anymore. And that is, of course, a huge problem. I see this in many capitals, but mainly in Washington. And that's a problem because the US still has, even if we said that the European Union has more influence, has a stronger leverage now, but nevertheless, I would say the Washington factor shouldn't be underestimated. And therefore, it is even more important that the US stay committed with all their personal and financial contribution. So the fatigue was not just on the Georgian society side, but also on the side of the international community. And that's a problem, absolutely true. And that is maybe also a reason why you have taken this steps to, or not you personally, but the parties respectively, to boycott the parliament because you had to raise awareness towards the international community. And this is, of course, very sad because it should have been different, no question. And I fully share also the view that there are rules violated. But I mean, how far can you go in each and every kind of violation? I mean, Misha has said it looks different in Ukraine, but I mean, if you go through the Ukrainian constitution, Ukrainian laws, their lawmakers break each and every law almost every day. So that's really, really difficult in these post-Soviet countries where you have a lot of contradictory laws and you have, of course, a very interest-driven political arena to really interfere from outside in these processes as much as you from the society, as voters, as citizens expect us to do so. I'm always much more, let's say, radical, and I wish we could act more swiftly. I do regret that we don't have the opportunities as the US has to do it, or has it with the sanction regime. We are much more reluctant because it takes a lot of effort to bring everyone on board to agree on a certain sanction regime. And talking about sanction with the EU institution right now, we tried, it's almost impossible. So even if we wish, and even if we share the same analysis which you have portrayed, it would have been terribly difficult to come to a compromise, to a certain joint point where we would be able to react on this. Saying this, I mean, it is also, I think, important that at least with the instruments you have as a parliamentarian, try to make a difference. Even you think the ruling party has mainly violated all the rules, because this veto, this boycott has not brought us anything in the end. But I share your point, and I also share your frustration, especially when you think after almost 3 decades of independence, Georgia should have done much more progress than they have done, in particular the last years. Absolutely true, yes.
I mean, it's really difficult on the one hand from our side to be so blunt and so clear on certain issues, because then the argument definitely comes, hey, we're really stepping over it. And this American argument that you had brought, if you're not fighting for it, why should we do it? That there is a point to make. But I would say, with the comprehensive treaties that we have concluded, we have an association treaty and this deep and comprehensive free trade agreement. If that is completely implemented, that gets you closer to the EU already than any other third country. And insofar, there is a leverage from our side. And no government in Georgia, regardless from which party, can claim that they are getting towards the European Union if they are not in practice implementing what has been agreed. Insofar, we can always, in the association councils that we have, we can always regularly say, here, this has been done, but this is lacking, and this has been done in the wrong way. So there is a lot of possibilities to interfere, if you say, in this, but that is on the basis of something that has been agreed. I mean, the Georgian side signed up to that. So we have a point to make. There is this issue. When it comes to these sensitive issues of elections, as I said before, the framework in this case is the OSCE, which is an organization with ODIHR, that is the implementing organization for the elections, that has a very positive reputation. And the recommendations from last time and the ones that will be following, I think, will be very clear. And our contribution as a parliament will also be very clear, whatever the findings are. And I'm clearly not saying it is all fixed, but there is definitely, as observers, we are objective. For us, it's the handling of this process, the entire process, that is of relevance, where we will then make our verdict. And I can only encourage all stakeholders in their respective functions, be it government, be it the election commission, be it the local observers, be it the media, to really also encourage all the citizens to go to the polls. I mean, I of course, as a head of an election observation delegation, I will not say you are right when you say it's all false. That is not my role, certainly not before. And but if people go out in masses and cast their vote and it is a clear outcome, I do not think that there is a potential really to turn it into the opposite, even if there were the will. I've been, as I said, in Pakistan, and there was, when I was the first time, there was General Musharraf, a military ruler, and there were huge complaints ahead. There will never be a fair election, that they will all turn it against, and the Secret Service, and so on. And there was a change of government, yeah, against all odds. And 5 years later, there was another change of government, and last time as well. So if the people really turn out in masses and cast their vote, there will, in a setup that is in principle democratic, will be expressed, and there will not be the capacity, if you claim it, to turn it upside down. So it depends on the citizens how vigilant they are to cast their votes and to follow it up in transparency in the procedures. And I encourage all to live this democracy and to really take the chances that there are. And I'm not suggesting they should vote in this or the other way. That is not my role, but I insist that they are all vigilant, that the vote that has been cast is also pronounced at the end.
Well, first of all, I need to tell, you can imagine how that's the mood overall. That's why when I said that I was in minority, I'm still in minority when I argued that our people should go to parliament, because we went to parliament, but then we had to receive this referendum, and now we are deprived of the referendum. And our people were telling us, look, they will lie to you, they will cheat you anyway. Where are you going? And they turned out to be right. So that's now, but Europe was guarantor of that agreement, okay? So now European Commission has to make sure that And I mean, it's very important to value the time. You know, Viola, Cramon, Mikheil, Gahler, they are spending so much time now with us here, okay? Which means that there are people who genuinely, it's important. I'm sorry, but you know, there are many countries in the world, and you know, European Parliament, she's just coming from monitoring elections in Iraq. The European Parliament has other things. Now, one thing to Mikheil Gahler about Pakistan. Good that you mentioned Pakistan. I'll tell you. Now let's go back to history. How was Musharraf disposed? Benazir Bhutto, against whom there were criminal charges, went back to Pakistan. Okay, she was killed, but that's what killed Musharraf actually. How was the next government deposed? Nawaz Sharif, against who were criminal charges, he was abroad. He went back before elections. Both of them went before elections and energized their voters. So, of course, there were people in Europe telling them, Benazir, stay, please. Where are you going? Don't provoke anyone. Let people of Pakistan do it again. Nawaz Sharif, where the hell are you going? You think you're going? There will be violence, provocations, blah, blah, blah. But that's how both times the Pakistani government was changed. So Pakistan example is telling me quite a very important lesson. I know my friend Sheikh Nahyan, who was a good friend of Benazir, who was telling her, not only Westerners, don't go there because you'll be killed. Wait from the side, your people will say, and then you'll have come back at triumphant, come back. It worked this way. She took her decision. Okay, she took her decision. It ended as he told her it would end, but then now, by the way, her son is the leader of the opposition there against quite, I mean, the present prime minister, who is a very famous cricket player, as you know. So Pakistan's example really shows that there are situations when the politicians need to, quoting Nassim Taleb, throw their skin in the game rather than just be observers from the outside. That's it.
Nino Kambegashvili, Georgian immigrant living in Germany, in Hamburg. Thanks a lot for this inspiring discussion. I think we need lots of this kind of discussions. Georgian immigrants living in Germany and in different member states of European Union, we value and very much appreciate the values of the European Union. And we are very concerned about our country currently, and not only currently, so this development, you know, started years ago, and the society is very divided. They are lacking of a vision for the future. This is very, very difficult situation to tell them yet, but democracy is good and keep going and so on and so on. It's really difficult. And of course, we are supporting progressive opposition politicians. We are supporting Misha exactly because we know we should fight for our better future. And the Misha and other politicians have experience and are really experienced leaders, and Misha needs to go back to Georgia. He should given a possibility to be involved in this country because he has a vision for better future, and this is our concern, that country has potential. Country has really good. Misha talked about the new generation with ideas, but we are not using this potential. And of course, we have now hope that we wake up in a different situation. And but if this not happens, what are the mechanisms from you supporting Georgia? This is my question. So if this trigger 43% is not reached, because you are saying, yes, go to parliament, but in parliament, there are not discussions about Georgian future. It's really only about hate speeches and about the picture, which is not really promising.
I mean, there is this agreement, and now the Georgian government will be held up to it. And that's what it is. So, and you don't show your cards before. But there were other questions. Please, can you?
There was the lady here.
Everybody will be.
He has been there for hours.
Georgi Metreveli is my name. I have a question for Mrs. Viola von Cramon. You are representative of the German Greens, and the Chancellor candidate, Annalena Baerbock from Greens, mentioned it several times that she is for the introduction of the hard sanctions against Russia due to the occupation and annexation of the neighboring countries, of the territories of the neighboring countries. And we noted the results of the last surveys, and they show that a coalition will most likely be formed with the German Greens. And what do you think? Will Greens discuss about this point in coalition negotiations in order to introduce this point, this topic, in the agenda of the coalition?
Please, Viola von Cramon, 2.5 minutes.
Very quickly. Thank you. I wish I could tell you, first of all, who wins the election. Oh, sorry. I just mute myself. Just a second. Just a second.
These are CDU agents.
Okay. No. Oh, now we have the English version.
This is Deutsche Bahn, always too late, and then they have these nice messages.
Nonsense. No. Well, to be honest, it's of course clearly it looks like as if we will become a member of the new government, but we surely don't know in which coalition. How is it? Will it be formed? What will be on the table? Everyone knows that we will take a tougher stand on Russia, that's for sure. But how much in detail this will be part of a coalition treaty, an agreement, this is hard to say at that moment. But you can be sure that this will be one of our subjects. And I mean, sanctions like kicking out of SWIFT or something really like a super GAU, as we call it. I mean, Sergei, myself, I guess also Mikheil, Gahler, a couple of other people in the European Parliament would be very much in favor of this. But unfortunately, so many people in the Western world, let's put it that way, are so much already used to the Russian interference, to this occupation. I have been to the north of Germany today. I spoke to fisher companies, and we have now a trade war with Norway. And for whatever reason, what I have never known and never understood before is the reason for this trade struggle and the conflict is that Russia has staying on the north of Norway. And they put obviously pressure on Norway to cancel a long-standing contract, a long-standing treaty with the European Union. And now all of our fishermen on the North Sea, very small companies, they are massively under threat. I mean, they might die. And the interesting thing, because I was digging and asking again, what is Russia's role in that? And then I understood that Norway, for whatever reason, they wanted to appease with Russia, and they let them go. And so no matter where you look, whether you look through the German election campaigns, today the Stratcom published their last analysis. I mean, it's terrible how many fake news were obviously created in the Kremlin again. Yesterday, you saw an interview in the German newspaper, and one of the state Verfassungsschutz, what is this? Security or services?
Protection of the Constitution, yeah.
And intelligence services. I mean, that of course clearly stated that most of the things are created in the Kremlin. And so, of course, many people have understood that overall, it is up to us in the next government to have a tougher stand on that. And we Greens will try to do our best, but of course, it needs a compromise. So I will be out now. I thank you very much and hope to meet you soon in person,
thank you a
either
lot.
in Georgia or in Frankfurt. Thanks a lot
Thank
for
you.
having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
On the German side, I can be partisan. On the German side, I can be partisan. With regard to Georgia, I have to be neutral. But I'm pretty sure that if it is a Jamaica coalition with the Greens and us, the Christian Democrats and the Liberals, there's a higher chance to be tough on Russia than if there were a red double red green, so left Social Democrat and Green coalition. Then the Greens wouldn't get through probably if that were the constellation. But I'm confident this will not be the case.
That's for sure.
And the last question here.
We had one there and one there.
One there. The last two questions together.
No more questions.
Ja, Sie kommen auch dran, aber der Herr war erst. Und
Dann Sie.
Guten Abend, Levan Lejawa, komme ursprünglich aus Abchasien. Ich nutze die Gelegenheit, Mikheil Saakashvili Danke zu sagen für das, was er für Georgien getan hat, was er für mein Land gemacht hat. Das ist, glaube ich, wir können heute Abend bin ich fast wie im Traum, Mikheil Saakashvili hier zu sehen, nach 23 Jahren. Und es ist wirklich zu schätzen. Meine Frage ist, ich habe das alles selbst auch sehr viel miterlebt. Habe Mikheil Saakashvili in kleinen Stadt Salenjika auch getroffen gehabt und gesehen gehabt. Der Tag nach den Wahlen, wenn das so ausgeht, wie viele vermuten, wenn vieles gefälscht wird, wenn vieles nicht so ausgeht, wie es wir wollen. Was erwartet Mikheil Saakashvili von europäischen Partnern? Was erwartet Mikheil Saakashvili von den amerikanischen Partnern? Werden wir gleiche Verhältnisse haben wie in Belarus? Werden wir kämpfen können? Das Land blutet aus. Haben wir da einen Plan B?
Sie sagen es jetzt auf Georgisch, dann
Ja,
kann ich nicht übersetzen auf Englisch.
Ოდის ვიხდი ქართული ცოტა დამავისდა 23 წელია უკვე გერმანიაში ვარ და დიდად მოხარული ვარ თქვენი ნახვით აქ გერმანიაში, იმიტომ რომ ხო და ჩვენ ვიცით რაც
Question. On the question.
არჩევნების მერე თუ ჩვენ ისეთი სიტუაცია გვექნა როგორც ბელარუსია დღევანდელ დღეს არის, თუ თქვენ როგორც ყოველთვის ამოთქვენიყავით ამერიკაში და ჩვენზეა დამოკიდებული ჩვენი ბედი, მაგრამ რასელოდებით თქვენ ამერიკისგან, რასელოდებით თქვენ ევროპული მეგობრებისგან, თუ იგივე შედეგი
And then you answer together. Yeah.
დიდი მადლობა. მე ვარ მანია ხუციშვილი ბერლინიდან. Ich würde jetzt ganz schnell abspülen, sowohl auf Deutsch als auch auf Georgisch, damit wir die Zeit nicht verlieren. Also wir haben hier sehr viel über die Demokratie gesprochen und meine Frage ist folgende. Denn also der wichtigste Teil der Basisdemokratie ist die Möglichkeit des Zusammenlebens in einem Raum. Und solange der dritte Präsident verfolgt wird und er ein politischer Flüchtling ist, haben wir in Georgien keine Demokratie. Jede Anstrengung seitens der Venedig-Kommission, das ist vergeblich. Wenn wir im Lande die Situation haben, dass einer den anderen mithilfe der Mittelaltermethoden rausschmeißt oder außerhalb der Grenzen setzt, denn der dritte Präsident wurde genauso rausgeschmissen. Prozesse, die ihm gemacht werden, wurden und werden ohne jegliche Rechtsgrundlage und können auch keine Sachkritik standhalten. Bürger Georgiens haben dieses Gefühl auch deshalb, weil die westlichen Partner keine Druckmittel gegen diese Willkür von Iwanischvili eingesetzt hatten. Und was würden Sie den Menschen sagen, die in Georgien überzeugt sind, dass der auf der Flucht befundene Präsident eine mit Putin abgesprochene Vereinbarung ist? Nun auf Georgisch, ქართულად ჩვენ აქ ძალიან ბევრი ვისაუბრეთ დემოკრატიაზე და ჩემი კითხვა შემდეგი რომ საბაზისო დემოკრატიის უმნიშვნელოვანესი ნაწილია ერთ სივრცეში თანაცხოვრება და სანამ მესამე პრეზიდენტი დევნილია ჩვენ ეს დემოკრატია არ გვაქვს. ასევე ყველანაირი ძალისხმევა ვენეციის კომისიის მხრიდან არის ამაო თუ ისევ ის მოცემულობა გვაქვს რომ შუა საუკუნეების მეთოდებით ერთმა მეორე გააძევოს საზღვრებიდან. მესამე პრეზიდენტი ასეა გაძევებული სწორედ. მისი სასამართლო პროცესები ყველანაირ სამართლებრივ საფუძველსაა მოკლებული და ის უბრალოდ სასაცილოა.
საქართველოს მოქალაქეებს აქვთ ის შეგრძნებაც იმის გამოც, რომ მიშასდევნილობის საწინააღმდეგო დასავლურ პარტნიორებს არანაირი წრეხი არ განუხორციელებიათ მთელი ამ დროის განმავლობაში. რას ეტყოდით იმ ადამიანებს, ვინც დარწმუნებულია საქართველოში, რომ მიშასდევნილობა პუტინთანაა შეთანხმებული? დიდი მადლობა. Vielen Dank.
ეს მართალია, ესე იგი, როდესაც დიდი მადლობა ამისთვის, ესე როდესაც გუშინ ვიყავი ამერიკის კონგრესში, ესე იზახოდა, რომ აი ხა შე რო ჩახვიდე, ხო ესე იგი ჩვენ მივიღეთ პოლიტიკურ პატივარს. თუ იცით, რომ პოლიტიკურ პატივარს იღებთ, ფორმულირება ესეთია, ხო, სენატორს, ჩვენ მივიღეთ პოლიტიკურ პატივარს. მაშინ ამას რატო არ აპროტესტებთ, იმიტომ რომ ხო ესე იგი თქვენ თვითონ აღიარებთ, ხო, აქ რას ვაკეთებ, ამერიკის ვიზა ავიღე, 5-ჯერ იმის შემდეგ, ხალ ერთ პასპორტს მქონდა, ხალ მეორე პასპორტი, ხალ მესამე და ამერიკას კითხვები ჩემთან არ აქვს, ევროპას კითხვები ჩემთან არ აქვს, სერბის ოფლიმოვი არა, არავის კითხვები არ აქვს, ხო? ესე იგი 9 გენერალური პროკურორი ჩამოიყვანეს, they brought 9 attorney generals. They hired former ones, U.S. Attorney General, Israeli Attorney General. There was a prominent attorney prominent prosecutor from Germany, former Minister of Justice of France. 9 people were hired by Ivanishvili government to find something on me. Like they studied this case for 1.5 years, and we discussed it in Strasbourg. They came up with nothing. They said there is no case. Okay, so. There is no case, but there is this situation. Then they tried to get me through ICC, International Criminal Court. They triggered investigation, although there was no need for that because basically everything was investigated. They were really hoping desperately that ICC would go after us because they always go after heads of states if they were at war, etc. Nothing of this sort is happening. But they really triggered it against all the principles of law. Now what we'll get, hopefully, I think I'm quite happy the investigation is taking place because I think some war criminals that were real war criminals might eventually get some indictment, and that would be very good. But the thing is that they've been trying this and this and this, and nothing works, okay? So the thing is, the problem is I'm quite high profile. I'm much more worried, for instance, like I had this guy who is administrating my Facebook page. That's his only crime. That's his only crime, that he has been administering Facebook page of United Nations Movement and my Facebook page. They sentenced him to 6 years 2 years ago because they said that 8 years earlier somebody claimed that he hit him in the street, in the dark street. Nobody has seen it. One guy said that he was hit by this Parnavas. And Parnavas now is staying in Warsaw all this time because he does want to go to prison for 6 years, okay? And no one cares about it, right? And there are so many cases like this. This is just one particular case of a small guy who is just honest, nice guy. You know, when you meet him, you immediately understand that no one can be further from violence than Parnavas. Yeah, and Parnavas has 6 years sentence on him, and there are still lots of other people who have been indicted, sentenced, chased out, etc. So it's like having a referee on the ground who basically is on the side of the other team, and having trainer of the other team saying, okay, we'll shoot now this player, this player, this player, because they're dangerous for us. And then they shoot player, take out the corpses, and then they continue the game. Referee doesn't stop it. So, I mean, we all know the situation. Okay, I don't have to prove the point. It's just rhetorics. But I'm more worried about the smaller guys. And that's, I have a high profile case. I can still go. I know I still go into your Senate, and they'll say, oh, you're George Washington of the region. Thank you for the compliment. But the George Washington is being chased by the state created. But that's something else. It's not about that. The thing is, I think we will get there. It's very important that we get now attention of, I mean, I'm quite impressed, frankly. I was, on the way back, it's a stopover for me, but it's the fact that Mr. Gahler could find time, the fact that Viola could find time, the fact that yesterday, on a very short notice, Senator Rich and Shaheen and the others found time, and with their big numbers, I was like, I called them on the eve, okay? So there is still this. We should not complain, okay? There are too many countries in the world. We are just a small country in a very complicated way. There is still something that it gives me hope. But main hope is my people, our people. Our people basically want to election. The only thing that is my worry, that all of them should not just find themselves in Germany, in Poland, in America, everywhere else. Because when I see that there is a mass exodus. 8 out of 9 years of my presidency, we had post-immigration balance. People were still leaving. Some of them maybe left during my presidency, but more people were coming back. Now we have an exodus. That's dramatic and that's drastic. If there is no people left in the country, you know, Maya Sandu won the elections, but because she won elections thanks to immigrant votes, which are basically Romania, but that's they're allowed and they have those procedures for that. We don't even have that procedure. Once there is a normalcy in Georgia, we should of course give online voting to all the Georgians that are abroad, because you send your money there, you are part of the society there. Of course, you have to vote not only in parliamentary local elections, you should have to vote on every main decision through electronic voting system if we really want to progress, because your experience is absolutely unique. And from that standpoint, I think we just should thank, you know, and allow our guests to, I mean, like, do other things, because they have elections, like, for God's sake, in 2 days, and which also, by the way, are very decisive for us. Okay, this is not like nothing. I mean, Georgian elections have no impact, let's face, on Germany. Well, German elections have huge impact on Georgia.
He asked the right question. He asked the right question on that.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. To wind up and to come to an end, we witness this situation that the judiciary is dysfunctional or applies selective justice. We see it in Ukraine, we see it in Georgia, we see it in Moldova, we see it in the Balkan countries. That is one heritage of the past, that also this judicial clans, they are really sticking together and don't accept from any politician to get replaced or that the process should happen. I mean, we really insisted on, in specific Georgian case, on this implementation of the reform of the prosecutor general's structures, which was then put off the agenda at short notice. So that is one symptom of this all. In general, we are against political issues should be dealt with politically, and legal issues should be dealt with legally. That doesn't mean that no politician should be indicted if he or she really broke the law. I mean, I visited the 3 former ministers of his government together with other colleagues in the prison some years ago, also to indicate, on the one hand, yes, that should be fair trials. That is the point. I'm not now arguing whether they were completely innocent. Yeah, so that's not my point now to argue. But in general, I mean, we have seen in Ukraine when Yanukovych went on Tymoshenko, we are seeing, well, at least attempts now, well, also towards Poroshenko. As I said, somebody who is voted out is because the people decided that, and then one should not go legally thereafter. But that was a political decision by the people, if there is a fair election. And insofar, we would really like to contribute to a situation where all people can trust in the judiciary, all people can have trust in the election observation, in the electoral commissions, and all people can really trust that the rule of law applies completely towards everyone, that nobody is above the law. That is where the people want the government to get and the country to get. That is where the partners want you to get. And I think we will stay on, regardless what the result of the election is. We will continue to engage and not let Georgia down. Didi Matlova.
We wrap it up now. I just want to read here, because you probably can't read that. There are some people who participated via Zoom. So there's one guy saying, that's why it is important for EU to have principled position against Kremlin's actions. Russia and Germany completed the project of Nord Stream 2, while Norway is under Russian pressure to cancel the contract with the EU. And then someone else answered, Georgie is right. Europe doesn't want to face reality. Russia won't stop neither in Georgia nor in Ukraine by itself. Russia should be stopped by strong, principled Europe. And then someone else answered, it seems like Europe is scared of Russia. Russia sees it and keeps pushing forward. Well, we hope it's not the way how it will look in the future. And now I want, for the final word, give the microphone to Nino Kambegashvili, who pushed me to do that whole event here. Otherwise, if she wouldn't be here, we wouldn't be here today. Okay? And thank you very much for coming. And our guests.
Am Anfang werde ich auf Georgisch unser Präsident, also wirklich unser Präsident begrüßen und bedanken. Also wir haben nur einen Präsident bis jetzt, der wirklich für uns, für unser Land was getan und gemacht hat. Deswegen, ქართულად ვიტახთ უკაცრავად. ბატონო მიშა, თქვენ ხართ ერთადერთი ჩვენი პრეზიდენტი, რომელიც ნამდვილად ესე იგი შემიძლია თქვა იმ საქართველოსთან, რომლიდანაც ჩვენ მე პირადად გამოვიქეცი, სადაც ხელი წყალი და შუქი მენატრებოდა და რო ჩამოვედი გერმანიაში და ცხელი წყალი გამოდმებით მოდე და შუქი გადამულად იყო, ამისი ნამდვილად არ მჭიროდა და უცბად თქვენ 2003 წელს, როდესაც ვარდების რევოლუციით საქართველოში მოხვედით როგორც პრეზიდენტი, ჩვენი ქვეყანა გახდა აბსოლუტურად ევროპული დამოუკიდებელი სანაკებო ნამდვილად ჩემთვის ევროპული ქვეყანა იყო და ძალიან სამწუხაროა ის რომ დღეს ჩვენ ისევ უბსკრულისკენ მივექანებით. ამიტომ არის ჩვენი მიზანი, ანუ ჩვენ ყველა ამ ქართველების პირველ რიგში უღმესი მადლობა თითოეულ თქვენთაგანს. ნამდვილად უამრავი ჩემი მეგობარია, უამრავს დღეს გავიცანი არ ვიცნობდი, ძალიან დიდი მადლობა თანადგომისთვის. და ჩვენ თქვენის წყალობით იმედი გვაქვს რომ საქართველოს დავუბრუნდებით. გისურვებთ წარმატებებს, უღმესი მადლობა თქვენი დროისთვის და მომავალ შეხვედრამდე იმედი მაქვს ძალიან მალე შევხვდებით ერთმანეთს. Herzlichen Dank alle an unsere Freunde, Herr Mikheil Gahler, vielen herzlichen Dank für Ihre Zeit. Wir haben hier Buffet und Wein und Softgetränke, Sie sind herzlich alle eingeladen. Sie haben jetzt georgische Weine haben wir leider nicht, aber ja, tut mir leid. Also bis bald. Herzlichen Dank.
2 minutes.
Thank you to the people in Zoom.